To all the Spartans in the crowd and Spartan fans, to Alan Haller, to Kate Souter, I'm glad you got some recognition, Kate. You were great in helping us. She's the director of the varsity club. To my fellow inductees who are here, I got to meet some of you today. Dave Morgan, the wrestler, him and I were down there 7 o'clock this morning working on our speeches. He was on a computer and I was writing notes, so tells you the difference in our age. So you get the call. Alan made note of that, and you think you're prepared. You're not prepared, and I know the other inductees feel the same way. The waves of emotion that you get from when you were here, even before that, when you first heard you might be able to go here, it's overwhelming. And then as you get the calls, supposedly you're not supposed to tell anybody. Well, in the first 2 days, I think 25 people texted me or called me, and I didn't tell them. And those waves of emotion and those discussions make you smile. For my teammates, most of them, we do a very good job of busting each other's chops pretty regularly. So they made me laugh. But a lot of the calls were very emotional for me, tears. And I wasn't embarrassed by it at all. A couple of my teammates who couldn't be here, Peter Hens, co-captain with me, All-American in his own right. He's got a few health issues. He made a very interesting call to me. Tony Keys is from Jamaica. He's living here in the States. Very emotional talk with those two. So I have a neighbor. I have a trivia question for you. I have a neighbor that lives on the lake with me up north. It's a name you're familiar with. So if you're asked this trivia question, his name's Steve Jude. He's been a good friend, him and his brother Jim, a long time. And so if they ask you what two Hall of Famers live on a lake together in Michigan, and what did they play, and who are they? It's Steve. He played a little football, and it's me. I could kick the soccer ball. So there's your trivia question. But Steve talked to me the very first day, or the second day that I found out, and he said, "Get ready for the waves of emotion." I said, "They've already knocked me down a bunch of times." So what this is going to be about for me is the opportunity, how grateful I am. It's going to be a celebration of MSU soccer. In one of the bios they call me a trailblazer. I got a great text from a young player in his 50s, he's still young, that I know, and he called me a pioneer, and I actually called him back. I said, "Why the hell you call me old?" But I got to feel about what a pioneer and a trailblazer meant, and I'm really proud that I was there back in the 60s when we built this program up. A lot of guys came here with a lot of talent. I was one of them, and we made a run from 64 to 68, 5 straight Final Fours, a couple NCAA championships, couple runner-ups. It's hard to win them, very hard. So I'm also going to, I got to talk about this a minute. I'm sorry, Kate, I might go over a little bit. To kickstart this week, literally, Coach Rensing, who I've known since he was a player here, used to play against his dad. His dad was a national player for the U.S. back in the 60s and 70s, so he has pretty good pedigree. From St. Louis, by the way, where I'm from. So he asked me if I would travel with the team and come down early to go to the Notre Dame game this past week. And I'll end if you don't know, we beat Notre Dame in South Bend, and it was sweet. So it started on Monday. I went to a film review and where he put the tactics in place, talked about how to defend Notre Dame, how to attack them. I learned more about soccer in that. I thought I knew a little bit. I didn't know enough. And his team of Reed, Nick, TJ, and Vince, he's got a heck of a team together and the players. that was one of the greatest experiences I've had. And I underestimated how much it meant to me. And to see the feeling of that team when they knew what they're up against, number 10 ranked team, and when they started to realize we are better than these guys. And they did, didn't they? They got back on their heels in the first half, and then they got on their front foot, and they were better. And in the last 20 minutes, they owned the play. And really proud of the boys. I put a little something in the newsletter. He gave me about 15 minutes to give him a text to put in the newsletter. So go read his soccer newsletter, and you'll see what I feel. I was asked about the differences between today's players and when I played. I can tell you this, I don't even recognize how well this team plays compared to how we played. The speed at which they play, the fitness level that they're at is incredible. They all have six-packs. I didn't see any little bitty beer bellies on any of them. He doesn't have to do bed checks. They were big back in the 60s. You better make sure the guys are in their room. These kids are so dedicated and so disciplined and so well coached. I was amazed. So I'm going to talk about a few people that made a difference in my life, why I got to come here, and what we've been through. I'm going to start with my wife, Willie. I was one of the more unusual players to come here. We were actually married before I got here. At a pretty tender young age. A lot of my friends thought I was crazy. I don't know why. But, so we did this together, Willie, and she knows it. She stayed in St. Louis for a year and worked, and we had a child born, and she could stay with her mom, and built-in babysitter. And then we came up here and moved into the Married Housing Cherry Lane apartments. So we did this together. It was really special. And she was a big help. I got to wear these damn cheaters. I'm sorry. I wanted to just mention our daughter that was here, who, when she was a year and a half, 2 years and that, one of the joys of not too many athletes here get to do this is at the end of the game, she would run out in the field. And I still have memories of that. And we have a picture of her where she's about to fall. She kind of lost her way, and it's a snapshot. And she actually did. She did a little bit of a face plant, but she got up and said, "I'm okay." And believe me, she's okay. So she was on the journey here with us. You know what I think of you. So there is an individual I want to highlight that was a big influence back to 6th grade. He has a very interesting contribution in my life. He was the only coach I had in soccer prior to coming here in St. Louis, Missouri, which was a real hotbed of soccer. And a number of people have asked, why so much in St. Louis? And as you know, we had, at one point, 21 players came here over a 5-year period from St. Louis, because the soccer program had a strong history there. And I tell people simply, there were a lot of dumb people in St. Louis that thought soccer was important. And I was one of them. And it's an exaggeration, but when I came here, there was no soccer in high school, so you got to understand the differences to today. But this man, if you look at the picture of the 78-79 NCAA basketball team, that's the Magic team. Everybody's seen it or has a picture of that. There's a pretty distinguished gentleman on the end of the bench, I think 2 seats in, who was my coach, and was Gene Kenny's recruiter to St. Louis. He's the one that delivered the players, and there were good players in St. Louis. He ended up being the equipment manager in Jenison when he retired, and he wanted to move up here because his son was up here teaching. And Gene got him the job as the equipment manager in Jenison, which was for all the teams, but obviously the headline team was the basketball team. Magic was there. It was a golden time. And his job included washing dirty, sweaty jock straps and sweat socks during the day, but he got to travel with the basketball team. He sat at all the home games on the end of the bench. How many of you would take that job for nothing, huh? He got paid for it. He was my coach from 6th grade on, and here's what I'm so indebted to him about. He taught us, his thing about soccer was simple. He said, treat your teammates like you're your brothers. Really care for them. Share the ball. Soccer's not complicated, man. Share the ball. Win the 50-50 balls. Win them with authority within the rules. If you knock the other guy down, take a foul. Don't worry about it. Because eventually, when the other guys don't want to go after the 50-50 balls because it hurts, you start having the ball a lot more. And he emphasized the physical. Ed taught me one thing about, he said, if there's a 50-50 ball between you and the goalie, and it's in the air or on the ground, either put the ball in the net or put the goalie in the net. That's how he believed you had to play, and we carried that. Back then, the goalies weren't as protected as they are now. So, you know, he helped me so much. I graduated from high school. I was out of school a year, and in that year, Willie and I got married. I'd played high school football, basketball, baseball, and I played club soccer for Ed. He let me play even though I couldn't be at all the practices, because if I missed basketball or baseball, I wouldn't be able to stay on the team. So he was very influential with me. And in that year that I was out of school, and I was young enough to play for a 18 and under team that he had. It was a club team, very good team. And he said, hey, you're not bad, but you could get better if you work at your game more. And there's a scholarship I think is going to be out there. So I'm kind of preparing for what am I going to do next. I got 2 more mouths to feed, thinking about being a fireman like my dad was, city fireman. And I said, this might be interesting. And so he developed a relation with Gene Kenny. The team I was on won our 2nd straight national 18 and under championship. I scored some goals, and Gene Kenny said, I want you to come up here. So when I say I'm thankful for the opportunity, it's because what it meant to me and my family to come to be. You have to know the neighborhood in North St. Louis. It's working families. That's what a lot of soccer, the good soccer players were from the city, by the way. The kids in the suburbs were playing golf and cricket or whatever else they played. And it was a hotbed of soccer, embedded in the Catholic schools. But the opportunity to go to Michigan State, to this day, I have people come up to me from my own neighbor and say, I can't believe you got to go to Michigan State. And I say, I can't either. So Ed created it. He was my coach. He coached me up. And I'll never forget him. He is in my Hall of Fame, my Hall of Fame. Okay. I want to salute Gene Kenny, who's in the Hall of Fame. He was my soccer coach here. He recruited me and the other guys. And my thoughts on Gene Kenny, I don't want to focus on the field play and the games and all that. I'd rather talk about how he helped off the field with advice. He shared a lot of stories with me about his time in Korea, in the Korean War. He was a medic. Stories when he came, was a coach of soccer in the Army. He actually came here as a wrestling coach. But his off the field, his door was open. If you talked to him and you listened to him and you weren't in there for getting in trouble, which we had some renegades at times that he had to have a closed door meeting. But if you listened to him, he had great advice about life. The jobs he got me on campus were great jobs. The jobs he got my wife when she was here working were great. And by the way, she worked me through college, and I worked on all the breaks, and I worked all summer, obviously, too. There was no training in the summer. You had to do that at night. So she worked 4 years, and then when I graduated from here, I worked the next 47. I don't remember that being in our prenup agreement, Will. 4 and 47, wow. But I'm grateful to you. So Gene was a great influence. He got us quality housing in Cherry Lane. Apartments were supposed to be reserved for the soccer or the graduate students. And 5 or 6 of my buddies on the football team that were married at the time said, how in the hell did you get into Cherry Lane? That's for grad students. They were in Spartan Village, so they had to deal with the train tracks, and it was a longer walk to class. And I simply said, you should have been a soccer player. So, you know, his experience. His son here, Mike Kenny, is here, and I talked to him too about how Sherry, his wife, what she did to reach out to any of us who are married. We had 4 or 5 guys who were married on our team, and she always made sure she connected with the wives. And in my case, with Willie, made sure she didn't get homesick. So, you know, there's a lot more goes into coaching than just winning, and I learned a lot from Gene about that. I got to give a big shout out to Big Iman, who, you know, obviously I didn't know him well. I did work in the AD office most of my junior year and all of my senior year. I worked for Bert Smith, and I knew him enough to be able to go in and talk with him. And it's quite simple. In 1963, soccer wasn't funded at the level it became, and that's the window of time when I got a scholarship. He put more money into the non-revenue sports, and he wanted soccer to be on a level with some of the others. And had he not made that commitment, I would not have played here. I wouldn't be standing here. So I'm very thankful for Biggie. And if you know that period of time, every non-revenue sport was loaded with studs. I mean, track and field, all the Big Ten championships they won, they ran circles around the Big Ten. They owned it. Wrestling won a national championship. Ice hockey won a national championship. Men's gymnastics won a national, and we won a few. And oh, by the way, the football team was pretty damn good too, huh? So right place, right time is part of my story and why I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I want to give a shout out to Coach Joe Baum. He's in the house. He's in the hall. Joe followed me. He's a year behind me, and he was one of the 21 that Ed recruited. Little did he know when he came here, he'd spend most of his life here. Proud to call him a lifelong friend. And the job he did of taking the program over in the mid-'70s when many of the non-revenue sports didn't have quite the scholarships they used to. Like try playing coach in the first 6 years with walk-ons like he did, and have to play Indiana, who had 12 on scholarship. And he did that with the goal of, I will build it back. And he did. So Joe, happy to join you. Fishing and golfing buddy. And occasionally we share a few iced teas. So lastly, I'm going to talk about my teammates, and the lifelong friends. And I read this a while back, 30 years ago, and it was some smart, or he thought he was smart Englishman who was talking about the difference between cricket players and their football players or soccer players. And he said cricket is a gentleman's game played by gentlemen. And then he said football, their soccer, is a gentleman's game played by hooligans. And I thought, he's right. And so I looked up the definition of hooligans prior tonight, because they fit a lot of my teammates. And there's a lot of negative connotation to hooligans, but the one I liked, it said they're hard-headed ruffians. And that's the kind of players I played with. That's why we won. That's why they were good. They made me a better player. Tommy Kraft, who is up here, he's up here. He holds the all-time record for assists. He played at about 135 to 140 pounds, soaking wet. Very skillful player. And I used to say, Tommy, that pass wasn't in the right place. You know, I needed it here or there. He sent me so many good passes, and I was a better player because of him and players like him. Some of those players to this day say, hey, Bushy, I remember sending a lot of balls your way, a lot of passes. I don't remember getting any back. And I told him then what I tell him now. I'm really very, very sorry for that, but not that much. So I'm proud to have been a pioneer, a trailblazer. I have some special friends here tonight I just want to acknowledge, friends in the audience who we met in our life along the way. They're all loyal Spartan fans, obviously. I do have one real good friend here. There's a great guy from Michigan. But that's what made really me appreciate the journey we were on, because our friendships, in addition to all my teammates, include a lot of them. So in conclusion, I'm going to say this, and I don't mean this in the wrong way. No one ever has been more thankful that stood up here for the opportunity to play here. No one's been more grateful. No one had more fun. I was joking with Jerry West, football guy. He's a tattoo buddy. I have a Sparty on my ankle here. I got an S right here, and I'm proudly wearing them as a Spartan. And so what I'll say with this is God bless to all in attendance here, and go green.